Hello, Leo. I am frustrated. I'm very, very close to getting a Nintendo 64 hooked up into this emulator console. I'm just not certain exactly what I'm doing because I'm following instructions that are written in Japanese, which I don't read. And now I'm too bright. Yeah? What? Give me a second. There we go. I'm a little bit less blown out now, I think. Okay, why is this? I'm not sure what I'm doing. Yay! Hey, Emma. Sorry, I'm not paying attention half the time. I'm over here. I have this emulator console called a RetroFreak that lets me play a whole bunch of games, old games from old systems. I'm currently trying to rig it so it will run a separate emulator from a console it doesn't normally emulate. Specifically Nintendo 64. To my knowledge, the only people who have done this successfully are Japanese. And all the information about it thus far is written on Japanese blogs. And I have only stumbled upon it by a very kind Japanese guy who kind of half speaks English on YouTube, who's linking me to these pages. And I'm close to doing it. The Japanese language is then being translated by Google Translate in such a vague, rough way that you're just kind of roughly getting the idea of what they're saying, but not specifics. Not step 1, step 2, this is what you do, this is what you do, because they kind of assume that you're going to be a hacker yourself and stuff, and it's throwing me off quite a bit. So, that is what the current thing is. I think I have it kind of right, because when I restart the console, which I'm going to have to do right here, 1 second. What you see is a white screen, and you'll see that white screen for a very long time. And the website distinctly translates that if you see the white screen for a very long time and then the factory restart settings, you've done it right. It's everything after that I don't understand, including installing the APK file, which is the actual emulator. And it also says that you can't just install the APK, but you also have to install, quote unquote, the home menu, which it does not clarify what the hell that even means. Like, what's the home menu? So I don't know. I may have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, but I was going to test it or stream it because if I got it working the first time, it would have been really exciting. And also because people think I do sit around and do nothing, which is partially true for the most part, I guess. And I figured I might as well stream nothing then. I get rid of the part here on the message about the microphone trouble because I fixed that. I'm still very bright. Very brightly lit. Oh well. It's not really a problem. It's just that my screen's so small now, it looks like a problem. After a little bit, we should have our pop-up screen popping up on us. just going to go over here and scroll about the web page and read it while I wait. Huh. I'm not sure. It's possible I've done it wrong. In which case, what a shame. There's no point in changing stuff around, though, and removing things until I get that factory restart straightened up here, because it's probably really confused right now. Okay, and here's the factory restart. No, well, I'll be back, because I gotta try all this again somewhere else. much to do right now. Oh, well, there's no games. No games there. Oh. Yeah. Well, they've been speaking to me, have they? Well, if they have been, I can't see it. Oh, come on. Let's say, really with that? What does it mean, no SD card? That makes no sense. Uh-oh. Oh, I must have hit the shutdown button. Oh, as I set down the thing, I'm getting a workout. played this game. I'm right in the new image. Yay. Where am I going? That is the question of the ages. I can't reach her. Yay, money. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm a little slow. Apparently I'm very slow with the whole sword swiping thing. Oh my god, you guys are going to kill me dead. So damn time. Oh my god, the shield doesn't block. I feel like a masochist. I enjoy this game. He was just sitting in the water, chilling. I don't know, man. I like the music. There you go, turbo. That makes everything easier. There we go.
What?
There you. That's a lot better. Enemy out of range. I was killing them. Oh, 98% of our new disk image. Done. Alright, let's get out of this one. Get out of all of them, I guess. Because I'm going to try it again. Be back in a second. Well, I've been away for a while. It's because I've been translating messages and sending them over to Mr. Secret, who is responsible for the RetroFD hack I'm trying to use. I think I've actually succeeded halfway. What I'm missing is some sort of home application, quote unquote, to launch it. But the problem is I don't know what a home application means or is. The best I've been able to figure out is something called RetroArch, maybe? And now that it's doing this, it's restarting. What does it mean? So it's restarting. Basically, the whole fact that it restarted means it installed the RetroArch APK, which I was hoping RetroArch would act as a home menu or home application. I'm trying to think of what else a home application might be. Like, this is all being translated out of Japanese and into English. So they may actually, I mean, it may be like a colloquial term that means something to them, like duh, but then you translate the exact words into English and you're like, home application what? What's a home application? I've even Googled Android home applications. I'm just kind of lost at it. But if I have it installed correctly, I should be asked, supposedly, which of the two I want to fire up. Which I don't know. So we're going to restart the console one more time and see if there's anything different. And if there's not, then I don't have a home application. I just have something else installed. By home application, would he mean an operating system? Like not just it wouldn't be something thrown in here. Because that'd be too convenient. I'm wondering if he means a launcher, like a third-party launcher that we'd usually put on our phones, like Nova Launcher or something. That might be what he means. I'm going to give that a shot. Well, here we go. Nova Launcher. Let's hope this is a home application. Let's hope it installs right too. It's going to have to restart. I feel like this is the closest as I'm going to get on my own. Holy shit, monkeys. You're kidding me. Did I do this? Did I do this? Holy crap. Alright, I need an actual controller with joysticks. It is officially time to shit my britches. Woo! Let's try this. Thank you, Mr. Secret. Domo arigato. Welcome to Nova. Take a few moments to select some basic preferences to help Nova fit you best. You can always change these settings and many more in Nova settings. If you're an existing user of Nova Launcher and would like to restore a backup of your settings, you can do that now. No. Next. Oh. Yeah. Mouse. Need a mouse. Mouse. I like dark. Corridor immersive. Apply. RetroFreak updater settings. RetroArch. RetroFreak. Moopin! Where's Moopin? Is this Moopin? No? Data usage. RetroFreak has no internet connection. Can it do bigger? It can. It can do 1080. Apps. Okay, we have RetroArch. There's RetroFreak and there's RetroFreak Updater. I'm not seeing Moopin though, which is the most important one. Am I had to install it twice? Ooh, cancel. Well, we're doing something with RetroArch. It's not the emulator I was wanting to use, but we'll see what happens. Okay. What are we doing here then? Load core. What does that mean? Netplay? Oh, it's unresponsive. Ooh. Whoopsies. Unresponsive. It does not work. Hello. Oh. Let's see. I need to get your thing over here so I can read you better. Look it up. We're gonna try. I don't know if it will dump it like this. I like where it landed a lot too. I think it is restarting though, because I think it's loading some APKs. Is it restarting again? I think it is. I did throw a couple of quite a few APKs in there. So if it's actually installing all of them, it should restart one more time for this. More again. And I think that will be installing all three things that I put in there. We're just really going to see, we're trying to see which ones will pop up. And we're hoping one of them is a Nintendo 64 emulator. And we're hoping that my stuff can work on it. I got this NES Pro controller with little joysticks on it, as you can see. Now, if it reboots any more than this, I'm going to start to get a little worried. Because it shouldn't. Did it just restart? It is. Yes. Is it Borkin? Is it Borkin? Might be Borkin. Let's fire up the RetroFreak itself. So my progress, Kyrian, is that I have got it. I have got the RetroFreak to understand that there's something else on here other than the RetroFreak. And I have got it to launch Nova Launcher, which is another home application. That's troubling. I got to do that, launch another launcher, and then I got it to load up RetroArch. But that was where it stuck. It froze there. It's something to do with the hack. The hack restarts the system as it installs an APK file, which is a program for Android. But I thought I could just kind of go straight to the other launcher. Apparently not so much. Maybe you have to go straight to the RetroFreak launcher. on these? The question is, why is it unhappy? What has sent it into this constant? What sent it into this constant reboot cycle? Well, I think something's a little broken. Yes. So we're gonna shut down the system, and I'm gonna go put the card back into the computer real quick and take it out. And power management. No, it's coding. Bad coding in Grey Goose. Yep. Bad coding in Grey Goose, Troy. It's yeah, that's my cousin. T. Wheatley is my cousin Troy. And I have made headway. I've gotten the RetroFreak emulator console to understand that there is a launcher on it other than the RetroFreak default launcher, Nova launcher. And when I did fire it up successfully. I set it up, and I launched RetroArch, which I actually don't know what it is, but it sounds something like it could have been a launcher or something. It's something that was installed, but it didn't install Mupen 64, which is the emulator of Nintendo 64, which is the entire point of this crazy exercise that the Japanese people seem to be successfully doing over there in their blogs that no one over here in the West is doing, because no one over here in the West, A, has a RetroFreak, and then B, knows how to hack, and then C, knows how to read Japanese to understand that stuff's going on over there. And the only way I'm finding out about it is a Japanese guy posting stuff on English RetroFreak based YouTube videos that no one other than me seems to be watching. And I'm talking to him a bit and going to his blogs and translating them with Google Translate. But the problem with that is the Google Translate Japanese really bad. And so I'm like, I kind of get the vague gist of it, but I really don't know what the instructions are. Like, one of the things was, hey, you can't just install the emulator. You have to install a home application. What is that? And it took me a while, but I was able to guess that a home application is a launcher. It's the Japanese term for a launcher. So, also, when we take ROMs off of cartridges and put them on computers and stuff, we call it dumping, ROM dumping. And apparently the Japanese call it suction, because that is what the term keeps translating to. Beginning suction. Suck out the ROM. And you're like, what? But I'm going to go take this SD card, put it back into the computer, and figure out if I can undo whatever is causing it to just reboot, be in this constant reboot cycle. And if I can get to launch, I think the reason I wasn't seeing Mupen 64 is because it required KitKat, and that's Android 4.4, and this thing runs 4.2, I think. So I'm going to Mega N64 Well, I was going to install 3 of them and just see what pops up, but now I'm in this reboot cycle, so we will see. Had to hit the power button. Okay, we're going to try one APK at a time. One at a time. Interesting. I expect to restart once. Oh well. It kind of demanded a mouse. Okay, well, let's try always. That might just break everything. Or everything will always be broken. Interesting. Well, all is not lost. There are ways to reset this on the SD card. I would prefer not to fiddle with that, but I'll probably have to, and I'll probably do it tomorrow at some point or over the weekend. Yeah, I mucked it up. Somehow. I mean, this is just a second SD card. I have my main SD card with all my stuff still on it, sitting over there waiting for me to swap it out. I just turned off a controller to see if... Nah. Alright. I'm going to swap out the SD cards real quick. Just to prove to y'all and to myself that no harm done. No foul. There we go. I'm loading our SD card. Yeah. I was trying Nova and RetroFreak back and forth, and they weren't working. So all it means, though, is I just need to reset, either tweak the settings that will cause the reset based on the translation from the Japanese blog, which I did read, or wipe that SD card, install the image back onto it, which is the hack image, and then go through these motions again, removing certain things that didn't work out. And See what happens. Let's see here. Anything y'all want to see on this wonderful machine? Oh, y'all can't even see my game selection over here. Here's all of them. Welcome. Now I'm using my wireless Super Nintendo controller from the company 8-Bit Dough. Very nice. You know, I'm a big fan of Super Nintendo. But, you know, those TurboGrafx. Cousin Troy used to have a TurboGrafx 16. And over there I played Bonk. And I never realized it was something... I never realized it was a TurboGrafx system. I always thought Bonk was on Sega Genesis. And I grew up pretty much the rest of my life thinking it's a Sega game. I just don't know what it's called or whatever. Until it was released on Wii. And WiiWare. And I went, oh. That's some Game Gear games going on here. PC Engine essentially is TurboGrafx. I need to tell it the right controller, else it's going to throw a hissy fit. Third party. Okay. Open the in-game menu. Well, it should be down and start. Right? Unless we're talking about the mouse. That's what they're talking about. What? No. Okay, I'll unplug the mouse then. Hissy fitter. Jeez. Just thing's so picky. You should understand, I'm not going to play Bonk with a mouse. I'm not going to do it. Streets of Rage 2, yes indeed. That one too. Basically, you hear everyone threw the big hissy fit about the NES Classic not being available, and everyone threw the big hissy fit about the Super NES Classic not being available for people to buy right now, being pre-ordered out. But no one realizes that for $150 to $200, depending on whether or not you want the controller adapter where you can plug in the original controller or plug in an 8-Bit Dough Bluetooth receiver like I use, you can get a system that can play 16 different retro games, retro systems, off the cartridges, put the cartridges in, and then dump the cartridges ROMs onto the SD card so you don't have to put the cartridges in anymore, and then the whole system breaks down into something smaller than a telephone, a cell phone. You can put it in your pocket, carry it with you for $200. It's kind of worth the value, really. This is the Cyber Gadget RetroFreak, now available in an international version. If I can just get, I'm trying to find where to get this message off the screen. There we go. Now, can you play? The question is, can you play TurboGrafx with this, a Super Nintendo controller? You can. The button layout's a little weird, but I think it goes something like L, Y, X, R, B, A for the equivalent, because that was a 6-button controller or something like that. Bonk doesn't use all that. Bonk just uses 2 buttons, A and B. Now, I did beat this game on WiiWare, and it got released on the Wii Virtual Console. And then I did not even know Bonk's Revenge existed. So when that got released, I was like, oh my god! And then I didn't even know that this game was apparently downported to the NES. Yes, the 8-bit NES. So you could play it on that system if you wanted to. Don't know why. That seems kind of counterintuitive. And then, I guess after the TurboGrafx kind of bit the dust, Hudson Soft released Super Bonk for the Super Nintendo. So that's a game. And of course, I downloaded all these. Don't tell anybody. But I didn't download all these. I actually went through and bought a whole bunch of cartridges off eBay, specifically so I could dump the ROMs. Now, the issue with that, my idea is I like to be legal. I like to be legal if I can be, and I want to, you know, dump my own games, my own saves, and all that stuff, playing on my Android phone. And this would be something that you could do. You dump it off the cartridge onto an SD card, and put that SD card back on your computer, and then you get the ROM file, right? Well, although CyberGadget doesn't seem to care where you get your ROMs, they seem to care whether or not you use their system to potentially advance the cause of piracy. And so they did this little thing where they encrypted any ROM that gets dumped onto the system with a DRM sort of system. That not only locks it to a RetroFreak, but locks it to specifically your own RetroFreak, which is ingenious, but also annoying. And one of the reasons I even got into this hacky stuff was I was commenting on this guy's YouTube video. He actually just broken down the system to see what was all inside of it, and commenting, man, I wish someone could figure out how to get rid of the encryptions on all these ROMs so I could use them on my Android phone, you know. And he didn't even know ROMs were encrypted from it. He really just got the system because he was a hardware geek. And that was when the Japanese guy, Akiyata, apparently, as far as I can tell, left a reply by message in broken English, obviously translated with Google Translator like I would have done, saying or talking about these Japanese bloggers that are hackers and stuff that are doing this. They were working towards this. And I'm like, what? And I checked it out, and it has taken me a week of trying to translate and understand what they're saying, and then get things working kind of halfway onto the SD card. And ultimately, the big grandiose plan was what they were doing was what it was only confirmed for Nintendo and Super Nintendo games in the moment, but it was basically when you dump a game to the SD card, the new hack would make a copy of that ROM, and it would copy everything it recognized as ROM related, which happened to not be anything that CyberGadget does with encryption. So it would copy the ROM and create a decrypted, essentially, version of it. Oh, I'm dead. Which would run on your phone, or run on anything. And, gotta press start. It's weird. And, I was trying to get that work. I still haven't gotten that to work, but it was, I found a video again of a Japanese guy who had successfully had N64 working on the system, which I thought was amazing. And he had officially said in his thing, I'm not telling anybody how I'm doing this. I don't want to get in trouble or nothing. But then you read the comments and people are kind of like, so clearly he used the RetroFD hack to install other Android apps onto the system. And I went, what? And it seems like they just were kind of commenting it going, man, who cares? And I was like, I care, because I want N64 in HD on my TV. And as far as I can tell, I have been really, seriously, the only Westerner who has given a flip about figuring this out. So I've gone to the unofficial forums. They have not seen an update since June. And they're in unofficial forums mainly for the Retron, which is a competitor system. How the hell are you supposed to get up in here? It's just like one of those things where, like, obviously it's a thing that you can do, but, like, I have never done it. Oh well. It's a Retron 5 blog, but there's a couple of... Most of the things I found out about the system, I found out from there. And no one's... You know, there's a whole forum dedicated to mods and hacks and people asking the very same questions that I've been asking. And people just saying, no, you can't do it, you can't do it. And that was the extent of all that was posted. So that's the #1 place you go for this sort of information. And no one's updated it since July. I'm not good at bonk, apparently. Not anymore, at least. Not while I'm talking. If that's the only place you go for this stuff, that means I'm on the cutting edge of this. And that's really kind of why I'm motivated to figure it out. Really? I was just barely just getting in under there. Don't you like the happy death music? Anyway, back to the system. Back to the menu. The one big thing I liked about this system was that I'd for a very long time always been a big handheld gamer, obviously, and been wanting to play, like, how do you stream Game Boy games, you know? And the best you could do was Super Game Boy, maybe, or actually the Game Boy Advance player for GameCube, which connects to it, but none of those are HD. When I saw this system had a Game Boy cartridge slot in it, I was like, "Aw, damn!" And yeah, I got it for that reason mainly. And now I got all my Game Boy games. Let's get a reset here from the very beginning. This was the very first game I ever beat in my entire life. And it's really short. Like, now in retrospect, I think it's like a 45-minute game. Like, you can beat the whole thing, no problem. But to me, it was, as a 3 or 4-year-old, it was this epic struggle that took me over a year. Good enough to finally get to King DDD. And I think this game contributed to my development of ADHD. Because just listen to this music. Does anything happen in a pace that's not hyperactive in this game? No. Every song is like someone wrote it and then someone said, it's not fast enough. I need it to go hyper speed. And just went double time and threw in more notes. And either my brain adjusted or I liked the game a lot because it was at the same speed of my brain. I don't know. But also that epic music. The King DDD music. Castle Lo 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 had a theme song music to it. That was pretty intimidating and epic to me when I first got there. Maybe I can get there now. Who knows? I'm still working on echoes myself. these guys called again? Forgot. Woo! Now, this is also a fun thing with this system. There we go. You can add filters that can make things look a little more HD for you. So I don't have any filters on because I kind of like pixelation. I feel like there's a lot of implied detail in pixels that get lost when you kind of smooth them out. But if you want a more HD look, you can apply filters like 2xal and Super 2xal, and it has an effect. Game looks a little bit smoother. You also lose a little bit of detail. There we go. I get my menu to pop up. My favorite of all of them, if I use any, is HQ2X, which I feel like does a good balance of things. So that's not too bad. But the system actually, with these sort of, I mean, you can turn on scan lines, obviously, if you want some old retro CRT thing going on. But I don't. The system, if you go back, really far back, to the main menu, you can go to game settings or AV settings, and you can sometimes on certain systems get a bit more specific. So hardware type, you can say I want to play this game as if I'm running it on a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color or a Super Game Boy adapter for the Super Nintendo, or automatic, whatever the thing it thinks I would want best. Or you can pick the color scheme, because say if you're in a Game Boy Color, it would have all these other color schemes available that you could launch by holding down different button combinations as you turn the Game Boy on. That's all in here. Or original Game Boy, which would actually give you a green kind of effect to the system. Or the Super Game Boy, in fact, has, for a lot of games, pre-programmed into it as being an adapter, a kind of border around the games, and this system has a lot of those baked in. I'm not sure if Kirby has one, but this is what Kirby Dream Land would look like played on a Super Nintendo with the Super Game Boy. Well, with that filter turned on. Let's turn that filter off. There we go. So you can relive all of that good stuff, which is pretty damn cool. Actually, it's really cool to me because specifically, you're gonna think I'm weird. I like video game history quite a bit, and there was a video game that was made called Metroid 2: Return of Samus. And Metroid 2: Return of Samus was made by an internal development studio at Nintendo, who then, as soon as they were finished with it, Nintendo turned around and said, "Hey, you guys did good. Now we want you to work on a new piece of hardware for us. It's not software. We're working on I want you guys to work on the actual internals of a system. We want it to be a colored Game Boy, a Game Boy Color." And the whole team went, "Really? We just finished Metroid 2, and it's in black and white, but it could have been in color if we just known that it was. Did y'all think about doing a color? And it drove insane." And so, a little known fact about the Game Boy Color was that the team that worked on it programmed into every Game Boy Color and every Game Boy Advance after that, because it uses the same sort of hardware, a special color palette specifically for Metroid 2. it doesn't look as good as like a Game Boy Color game, but still, it was like the team was trying their best to go back in time and fix this mistake. And I had found no way to play Metroid 2 in HD on a big screen with that color palette, strangely enough, because all the emulators that fire it up just don't think of that you want to see it. And as you're playing it on a Game Boy Color, they just fire it up in normal Game Boy colors, and there's no way to switch it out or tell it what have you, except for this system. This system lets you specify that you want it being played on a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance. So I think I say what? Game Boy Color, and then I say auto, and then I fire it up. And that is the color scheme they came up with. Samus is really, really red. But it's the best they could do. And this color palette only ever appears if you're inserting Metroid 2, Return of Samus, into a Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance. Or a RetroFreak. So little things like that, just, you know, they're the fine details that make me go, I have to spend money on this system. I have beaten this game 3 times? I know at least 2. I think I got close to 3. I remember I had it forever. Carrie and Troy bought it for me. I think mainly because they wanted to play Metroid, and I had no clue what Metroid was. But I thought it was awesome, because who wouldn't? You're a giant robot guy. I didn't know it was a girl. I didn't know she was Samus. I thought it was Metroid. Yeah, it was, I never understood the game. I never understood what the point was, and I think it's because, well, you have to read the manual. I couldn't read back then, but... Oh my god. Well, we found a Metroid immediately. Holy cow balls. Well, as soon as we take a step forward, this thing's gonna freak out, so... Let's kill it. Oh, it's bigger now. It's not even, it's like a beta. Ah. Where are you? Ah! If you're not ready for the 3DS remake, this will get you ready for it. Ba-ba. And see that little Metroid counter down there, 24? And if you pause it, it says 8. That's what I was missing as a kid. I never knew that you had to kill all the Metroids on your level, as in 8, to get the toxic, you know, chemical water to lower to explore more of the world. I had to read that online somewhere, and I went, oh, and then I could beat Metroid 2. Just tiny details like that get left out. This is also the first game where Samus could shoot downward. Strangely enough. Well, it was also the first game where Samus had a save. Well, I say save. The NES, American NES version of the original Metroid had a password-based save system because the original Metroid game was a game for the Famicom disk system, and your save file went on the floppy disk. But the Famicom disk system was a failure, really, and never got a release over here, even though several games, like including Metroid, and I wouldn't say Super Mario Brothers 2, but Doki Doki Panic, essentially, or what came to be known as Super Mario USA in Japan, was a game for the Famicom. Very good games. So how do you release them in the United States when you don't have that actual system and it needs all that information? Well, you downport them. You cut stuff out of them. In the case of Metroid and Super Mario Bros. USA, which came out here as Super Mario Bros. 2, it was mostly sound. You can hear a lot of better sound music of Metroid and stuff if you play the Famicom version, which you can on the RetroFreak. That's one of the weird things where the RetroFreak can... Oh, I hate that freaking alarm. It can play Famicom Disk System games. It has support for it. But it wants a Famicom Disk System. Really? Right? And if you don't have one inserted into the system, it pretty much fights you on it. So really the first hack anyone does to the system is they download BIOS for the Famicom Disk System off of the internet and install them onto the SD card. So the system kind of thinks that you put a Famicom Disk System drive into it at some point and has all the BIOS required to run Disk System on it. So then you can fire up Disk System games. And yes, you might think, Keith, isn't it hard to play a game that only ever came out in Japan and is in Japanese? And I would say yes. But there are some very enterprising people. Well, I didn't know that I had cactuses down here or something. Enterprising people out there that translated the games. Some of them at least. Like Metroid. Into English. So if you wanted to play the Famicom Disk System version of Metroid, which is harder and has better sound effects, in English, you can. And, well, you have to download off the internet. But that's what I did. So I have it on my wonderful system. Let's go check it out. I passed it. Metroid. I believe the second one is it. I get to the title screen to know. Okay, what is it? Wrong side of this system. There you go. I flipped the disc. There's a button combination you had to press to flip the disc on your controller. Nintendo Family Computer TM. This product. So you can see it says Alan Midas Metroid. He's the guy who made the translation. You can hear if you have the Metroid sound effects and the music from the original system or original NES system in America memorized, you can hear the differences in the instrumentation of this version. There's just more. There's just more stuff going on. And it's not always an improvement. The guy who did the sound effects for the American version of the game was a different dude. And even though he had to work with less sounds, I mean, sometimes he just made better choices. That was really obvious with Zelda. Zelda was a Famicom Disk System game. Or came out as The Legend of Zelda, and over here, but in Japan it was known as Zelda, the Hyrule Fantasy, or whatever that is in Japanese. Something about that 8-bit music is catchy. Loading. And you may see flip disc here in a second. There we go. Flip to side B. That's actually a good translation, honestly. You might think that's kind of simple, but I've seen worse translations. Look at that Samus. I forgot about Turbo. If you're using a Super Nintendo controller by default, you know, Y and X are the Turbo versions of B and A. So just Invincible Samus. Didn't it used to say Morphball Get or something? Maybe it didn't. Maybe they added that later. Let's see. Can I fire that quickly without turbo? I don't even know. Here's another admission. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with the original Metroid. I never had a Nintendo, like an NES system. So, the original Metroid was a game I never got to play very much growing up. And, also, strangely, Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, even though I did have a Super Nintendo, I didn't even know existed until pretty much the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan. The N64 was coming out. I went over to a friend's house, and he had Super Metroid, and he showed it to me, and I was like, wow. Holy crap. I was like, this game is going to be, I was actually comparing it. I knew about the N64 at that point in time. I was thinking, N64 games are going to look better than this? And really, humorously enough, they didn't. If you think about it. Because everything made that jump to 3D, they it's like that first generation of 3D stuff with the N64, and it didn't quite hold up to the kind of, I don't know, the precision that we had achieved with 16-bit graphics and pixel graphics. There was a lot of 2D sprites essentially that could look a lot better than 3D models at that point in time. As we all know, no Metroid game for Nintendo 64. Although Samus did appear in one game for Nintendo 64 called Super Smash Bros. I am filled with Nintendo and video game trivia. Now I kind of remember. Now, what I have played a lot of is Metroid Zero Mission, which is a remake of this game for Game Boy. Significantly changed. Not really the same game at all. Much better game than this game, actually. But I kind of remember that you want to go up a lot at the beginning of this game. I don't think you want to go over there, though. Maybe you do. No. Doesn't matter. I wasn't going to play too far this anyway. There you go. Famicom Disk System version of Metroid in English. And your Mega Drives. Who can forget, you know? Let's get some Sonic going. Aw, snap. By the way, if you haven't played Sonic Mania yet, you know what you're missing. It's so good. Oh, I'm not playing. I have to hit start to play, apparently. this game either, though. I think I watched Carrie beat it. And it was really just, I think I just sat there in awe. I think it took him several hours to beat it, too. But I was like, wow. He told me he could, and I was like, I didn't believe you. And then he did it. And he made me watch, too. there was no, okay, I'm bored of it now. He was like, no, you're gonna watch me beat Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, we can't spin yet? Was spinning not a thing yet? Oh my goodness. It must have come in Sonic 2 or something. Either that or not pressing the button right. Nope, not here. Whoa. Oh! Sonic passed something. Bling. I was never at this. No. Whoa. Okay. Come on. No. Where are we going? Back to the start. Let's just wait. Come on, let me in there. Ah. Okay, now I need to not perish. Perish immediately. I gotta continue. Let's get something here. And actually, if you have a Nintendo 3DS, you probably should get this game in its 3D version. There's a Sonic the Hedgehog 3D, which is very, very good. Rockin'. Anyways, I bored y'all to tears. So, I shall call the night and get back to figuring out how to get a Nintendo 64 running on this thing. Tomorrow or Saturday. One of the two. Really, what I need to do to get back to is Xenoblade Chronicles Episode 2 or Fire Emblem Awakening. One of the two. One of the two. Until then, I'll turn the system off now. I'll see you guys later. Bye.